Hello, Human Girl followers, subscribers, random people surfing for the internet for interesting YouTube videos. Thank you for clicking on mine. I have not posted anything on this channel for a very long time, regrettably. Part of that has to do with a very busy schedule, but really that's just an excuse that too many people use for not doing what they know they should do. And for me, I pull that out too often, but I think I have been in a state the last couple of months. I think my last video was in October, and I think that the state I have been in since my last couple of videos on Human Girl, I've continued to post on my blog and put those poems that I've been writing out on social media. So thanks for the love there, for those of you that have liked those or messaged me or commented on those poems and told me how much they meant to you. With my videos, I think I've been trying to understand and just kind of qualify in my own mind the value of these in addition to my poetry and what I'm really trying to do here. And the reason I started a YouTube component to my blog was mainly because I wanted to add a very personal element to Human Girl. As the name implies, it's all about the human experience and allowing art and our story to impact the human experience, and hopefully as we make sense of our story for ourselves, we can help make sense of that for other people as well. So that was the point of Human Girl, and the point of the YouTube component was to make it very personal in the sense that I wanted to be able to see you guys to see my face and hear my voice and know that there was a real person behind the blog. So that human element was important to me, but I think that it's been lacking for a while because I have been trying to figure out who I am in the sense of how I relate to other people. And I have also been dealing with a major hurdle in my life, which I'm about to just briefly put out there in the cosmos for you guys, for whoever's watching, for whoever has subscribed or just has an interest in this topic as a whole. For those of you that have read my blog or read the introduction to my blog or listened or watched any of my videos in the past, you probably have an inkling of the fact that my growing up experiences were not ideal. Nobody's are. Nobody has that perfect idyllic childhood that we see in the fairy tales and the novels, as much as we all want one. Now, some of us have better childhoods to a different degree than others, but nobody has a perfect childhood, and mine certainly was not that. There was a lot of different trauma and a lot of different categories and a lot of different kinds of trauma that went on. And I think we all deal with that differently. I think different personalities are more prone to reacting in some ways over others. Basically, it comes down to what I think are two different types of people, those that externalize and those that internalize the result of their pain and trauma. Some people will take that and they will become abusers in return, and they will externalize the anger and pain by hurting other people. Some of us also will, on the other hand, internalize the pain and start to hurt and abuse ourselves as a way to feel like we have control over a situation, or maybe to punish ourselves because we feel guilty for abuse that was out of our control. Neither response is right, but some are more subtle than others, and I think that the people that internalize, which is myself, and maybe some of you that are watching, those of us that internalize, it's a lot more subtle, and it's a lot harder for people to grasp what's going on, even ourselves. And so one of the ways that I have internalized the trauma in my life is to deny myself food, and some of that is subconscious, some of that isn't. A lot of it comes down to the way I understand my relationship with food, the way I understand nourishment and taking something in. It's never about the food. It's more about how I feel about my life, the quality of my life, my self-worth, and how food impacts the way I feel about myself as a human being at the core of my personhood. And this is obviously a topic that could stand to be discussed in 20 of these videos by people much more well-versed in the topic than myself. I've begun to work on it, though, in the past several months. This year was probably harder than it's ever been. It basically looks like, for me, just not wanting to eat or feeling guilty when I do, and so kind of an unhealthy cycle of denying myself food for a long time, whether that be 24, 36, 48, or sometimes even more hours, and then binging on like carbs or things that just, the easy things that make you, the junk food, the sugars, the carbs that make you feel good. And it can be, that can be the cycle. I can feel guilty just for eating. I can be afraid of gaining weight, even though I'm only a little over 100 pounds. I can look in the mirror and see something totally different than what other people see. I never been officially diagnosed with anything like anorexia or bulimia, but I do display some of the symptoms of both without the full-on intensity of either. And I have reached out for help with my mentors, my psychologists, my therapists, people in my life, and it has gotten so much better. There was a time this year over the early part of the summer, late part of the spring, that I lost 9 pounds in 3 weeks. So that's about 3 pounds a week. And just simply through depression was involved heavily in that, but just simply through not eating and then realizing that my body just couldn't function, whether that be because I was dizzy or fainty or whatever, and then having to eat and just binging on something and then feeling terrible about it and then not eating again. And once I got past the idea that it wasn't about the food, it was about a lot of things other than food, I started to get better. The reason I'm posting this is because our journeys to recovery are never a straight line. They're a zigzaggy line at best. And my zigzaggy line this week looks like I had gone home for Christmas in the Austin area to see my family. And the holidays are never easy for anyone, but particularly for people who have just a lot of stuff going on in their family, and it's not always comfortable. It can be awkward at times. And that was somewhat the situation for me. Very much so, actually, if we're being honest. That's the human part of Human Girl. I'm going to retract that statement and say it was actually very awkward for me. And so when I came back, I think I was dealing with a lot of emotions. And as of exactly just a couple minutes before this video, this is the first time I've eaten anything like a meal in 48 hours. I hadn't gone with zero food for 48 hours, but I hadn't had an actual meal in 48 hours. The most I'd had was maybe an apple in the last 48 hours and a small little breakfast sandwich from Starbucks. So not much nourishment there. So basically it was a tiny little breakfast sandwich and a small apple that got me through the last 48 hours. And that was intentional. A lot of times it's subconscious on my part. It's not intentional, but this was intentional. And I think I saw the tendency in myself to revert back to old patterns as a way to cope with the current stress of an old family situation that had hurt me in the past, that doesn't have the power to hurt me anymore because I have changed and the situation has changed. My autonomy and my power in the situation has changed. But just being back in that environment, it was hard to cope without internalizing the pain again. And so I'm putting that out there simply because I feel like a faker as Human Girl when there are major stuff that go on in my life. And of course, with all appropriateness and all tact and all wisdom and discretion, do I decide what to post and what not to post. But in this situation, I think there are way too many people out there who, probably like myself, don't have a full-on diagnosis of a disorder, but they struggle with it, especially women. And whether that simply just means body issues, it might not even be a full-on disorder. It could just be body issues. But I think that all of us, to some extent, in the culture we live in, is just such a messed up, twisted culture in the sense of how we view femininity and womanhood and sexuality and beauty and our bodies, that I don't think any girl these days escapes unscathed, but some are more, in terms of our relationship with food, there's a level of intensity and it goes by different degrees, and I have found that mine goes to a degree at times that is harmful to myself. So I'm putting that out there because it's the journey. This is a new year. Day after tomorrow, we're celebrating the first day of 2019, which is incredibly exciting. And for me, it's a huge victory. The fact that I made it this far is huge for me. But I think that I would be remiss to not share that as I start out this new year, I have a lot of goals, but the biggest one, for right now anyway, is to restore my relationship with food. And so it will be an ongoing conversation that you'll probably see through other videos and poems and raw kind of vulnerable component of Human Girl that I'll now more willing to share with you guys, because it's something that I can't do in isolation, and I have found that hiding things only makes the problem worse. When you cover up a wound, instead of treating it, it festers, and then it gets infected, and then it starts hurting, and then people find out, whether you want them to or not, that you have that. So I'd rather share it at the front end and be vulnerable and try to work through this with people. And for you guys as my audience, just letting you in on the struggle, I feel in my gut that there are many of you that feel the same way. And so I hope that this blesses you in some way, and stay tuned for more. This won't be the entirety of Human Girl. it will still very much revolve around story and the arts and creativity as a way to heal and process the human experience in the same way that was my intention when I started the blog. But this will be just an added component to my story and my journey as I work through this. And thanks y'all for watching.